prepared. This session was prepared for those of you who like to learn a little bit more about GDPR. My name is Slavek Lisner, and I would be holding this session. The session will take approximately 30 minutes. I have a couple information to share with you. There will be space for your questions and answers, so please don't hesitate to put your questions into the chat or the Q&A section of the Zoom meetings. Já se sám slyším, how do we go? And okay, let's get started. So welcome everyone. So GDPR, what I would be talking about, I will be talking about what we've prepared in Redmine to helping the data controllers to fulfill their obligations. We are also improving our internal processes, security, and many other stuff. So to get started, let's just summarize that we as a EU company, we are really dedicated to comply with this new regulation which coming to place on the May 25th, 2018. We are on a good track to have everything ready before the date, and this session is actually also to tell you what's coming out in order to get us and you compliant with all the GDPR requirements. Okay, I will be using a couple terms. I'm pretty sure that you all know these terms. I just at the beginning want to summarize that. So who is who in the GDPR world? Data controller is basically any organization, any business that is collecting and processing any kind of personal data. Typically, we will be talking about that we are also data controller in position towards our clients, but today we will be focusing on your organization as data control and your obligations. Related to that is then the role of data processor. Data processor is some entity, typically organization, that can process the data somehow based on instructions and based on the orders of data controller. So there is one very important thing at the beginning. So because we act as data processor for those of you who use our cloud application. So if you are our cloud client of Redmine, we act as our data processor. So basically, we are providing you all the platform in which the data are processed, and as we are running that on the server, we are a true data processor for you. So I will be talking about also what's coming new for you, those of you who are cloud clients. If you are running Redmine on your own server, in that case, Easy Software is not a data processor, as you have hold the server under your control, the database, user access, everything is under your control, and in such manner, we are the provider of application which may or also may not be used to process your data by you as a data controller. So typically as data processors, we will be preparing also some legal background for your documentation in case you have our application on your own server. That's the part we will be focusing today the most, as it will be about what Redmine, the application itself, is bringing you in order to get compliant with GDPR. But we are not the data processor in this matter. Also, the GDPR brings a couple more terms: data erasure, right to access, right to be forgotten, data protection officer, and some others. There's a bunch of those terms. I picked these because it's important, because right to be forgotten or right to access is something which are the privileges of a subject. With subject, I mean the person about whom do you collect the data. and this is addressed in the application. You need technical instruments to perform data erasure, rights to access in terms of the rights of those subjects. So I'm bringing that. Data protection officer is a position in an organization who is responsible for all the processes, etc. In terms of easy software, the person is me, and so also I am your main contact for any further actions related to GDPR, legal stuff, and so on and so forth. Later on, you will see my email over that. Now, to close the first part, just sum up what we do in Easy Software. So first of all, we are the data controller as well. So we are also, as probably everyone in Europe now, improving some process documentation, reviewing internal security. We run pretty extensive audit of pretty much everything in our organization in order to find the gaps and close those gaps. I mentioned for some customers we work as a data process service, which means that we made some surveys and we are bringing such arrangements, instruments, and technical background that we can fulfill demands of data controllers on the trustworthy data processor. And most important, Redmine is an application in which you may manage your data, and so we made a couple improvements there, and that's what I will be talking right now. So what are the changes in Redmine which will help data controllers to fulfill their obligation? First of all, these features I will be talking about, they are in development right now, and the official release of these features is in the last week of April. So there will be Redmine 1.2 going out during the last week of April, and that will bring all these features which I am presenting. It's maybe not that early as I would like to. On the other hand, if you are a current user of Redmine, you need just to do a little bit of clicking and settings to use these new features, and you shall have no issues to be factically compliant at the respective date of May the 28th. Right, so let's look on that. Actually, GDPR caught us in situation that we assess the way that is a good chance to fulfill a couple gaps which has Redmine inside of that and which was not covered but Redmine. So we took it as actually fair chance and fair opportunity to bring some more features which we were know about that we need to bring them, but we were already pushing back as we were more focused on the project management features. So first of that, we will rework, or we are reworking at this moment as we speak, the password policy enforcement. With that I mean the ability for your administrator to set up the policies for password in more details. You know that nowadays what we have implemented is the length of the password, and recently there is a new feature that every time you are entering new user, changing some user privileges, or adding user on the project, that the system requires to enter the password. That's what is in the system already. This enter password is actually important as it is addressing typical physical security that unattended desktop station is not putting in risk that somebody can just quickly give himself huge privileges. But what we are going to add is that we will extend the specification how the password shell looks like. We will implement time limit for password validity and password repetition control. That's pretty standard features in many systems. It will be possible also to set automatic signing of user after some idle time. again to address the unattended desktop security. And for those organizations, they want to have one level higher security in terms of password. We will implement two-factor authentication, meaning that once you add the username and password, the system will generate a unique code and send it to you via email or SMS, and you will need also this code to enter the application. We saw it in some as a some of the requirements, and I think this is, in terms of password, bringing quite high standard used by also banks, etc. What is very important part of that, and actually what is one of the main uh, issues of GDPR. GDPR is basically saying, and it's critical requirement over there, that the personal data shall be accessed only by those people who really need to access them to perform their work, right? So the GDPR is asking, especially larger organizations, to limit access to personal data in general. It can get tricky, and we actually brought a couple things how to do that. I will take it from the bottom. Because this is the most general and it's actually very cool. We are building functionality which allows you to say that some custom field and you know that in Easy Redmine custom fields are on every entities, and all contacts are basically custom fields as well. Technically, that certain custom field is visible only to certain user or list of the users, or using certain group of users or groups of users or certain user type. That's essential because that gives the control on very top level over the roles and permissions, because roles and permissions are project based, but this goes as a top level all over the system. So later on, I will be telling you how to use especially this feature to get compliant with this critical requirement of GDPR. Um, as it is pretty natural that a lot of personal data are typically stored in contacts of Easy Redmine. Contacts came with a couple new features. One of them is that we are a bit more extending privileges about contacts. And secondly, what we found is a simple way of implementation GDPR, especially for B2B companies, is that we are bringing limitation of visibility based on contact type. So you know that contact has basically just one native field, which is contact type. Typically used, you can use it as a company, person, supplier, competitor, a partner, and so on and so forth. And typically you can say that certain users may see any business contacts, but the contacts of individuals are accessible only to those person who needs that. What is actually nice about this custom field visibility, or limiting that somebody cannot see some custom fields, especially on contacts, is that is nicely addressing that basically in a lot of organizations you need to work with the data, right? You need to segment your customers geographically, age-wise, based on positions, etc., in order maybe to prepare some marketing campaign, or in order to make some business decisions. And actually, this would allow you to still keep working with the data, but having this data anonymized, just through that somebody that most of the users doesn't see, uh, cannot connect actually the person to the data. So you can collect that, okay, this person has 180 centimeters tall, 7 inches foot, likes IT, or I don't know, whatever you do for profiling, but the identification of the person, which may leads to actual identification of the person, can be invisible, right? Um, So this custom fields is I would say pretty strong feature. However, we still recommend to implement GDPR regulation around Easy Redmine the way that you would have all the personal or eventually personal data in contacts using the contact tab for that. And why is that? That also there are some additional features which we are implementing on top of contacts. Typical, there is this right to be forgotten. That's actually the right of a subject that they can tell you, I want you to delete all my data and don't track me again. So basically, that's deleting the contact, right? But sometimes you can't delete the contact because you need to keep the business history. You keep previous purchases and so on and so forth. That's why the GDPR is coming with something which is called contact anonymization, and that actually allowing you that you actually delete certain data from contact, which would actually lead to the person, which would allow you to identify the person. So the same what I said before, you can just maybe anonymize the contact, right? You're keeping all the data you need for understanding your customers, but the person is not trackable anymore. So your data is completely fine as per GDPR. For that, we are extending the feature of contacts that you would be able to say what fields are subject of erasure for anonymization. So basically, it's the same way how you can just press a button and delete contact. You can press a button and anonymize the contact, and that would simply erase the predefined fields. So your data will stay, all the connections between contacts, tasks, and projects, contacts, and CRM, where this is necessarily, will just stay there. But they will be anonymized, which is actually what the GDPR is asking. So this way, you can fulfill the right to be forgotten. Rights to access, it's actually pretty often misinterpreted. Right to access doesn't mean that you need to give anyone access. The right to access is basically saying that that you are obliged to provide a subject, a person, upon request, all the data you are collecting about this person, right? So everyone has a privilege to understand what do you collect about them. For that, we are just preparing very simple feature. Again, a button which will basically generate a export in machine readable format. That's the requirement, that the information you provide to the person has to be machine readable, so it has to be some format. It will be XML in our case, most probably XML or CSV, definitely some structured file, and providing the person this data will allow you to fulfill that. um, there is GDPR is also talking about something as contact pseudonymization. It's something like contact anonymization, but you with the ability to get the identification data back. Um, Actually, well, this is very hard to fulfill, and so here we basically recommending customer that if you have to do the contact pseudonymization, then it is tricky, because you shall basically keep some identifiers of the person in very separate database, in very separate access. So the simple thing what we are recommending here, because it will be, I mean, I don't know, nobody expects that there will be hundreds or even dozens of requests coming, that basically you keep the data which you are anonymized, the way that first you will actually basically export the contact as it was described in right to access, then you anonymize and you keep you keep the XML separately somewhere with very restricted access. That's the way which you need to, if you want to use pseudonymization, you have to cover process way. Um, but actually, EasyRedmine is not designed the way to have really two separate databases, two different controls. So after some assessment, we are recommending, if you need pseudonymization, just export the contact liked for right to access, then anonymize it and store the export on a very separate place. Right. The last thing which is coming to that is that we also audited if we have enough capabilities for logging. So because GDPR wants or asking data processors to have such instruments that they can actually find who saw the data, even who saw the data or who manipulated the personal data, we find out that we are logging pretty much everything. So what we are improving is just some tool which will allow you to manage the logs easier way, that you can store them as per your internal processes. So that was the part about GDPR and what is the EasyRedmine new features helping you to fulfill your obligation. Just few words about what we do as a data processor. So EasyRedmine in cloud, basically what we found out that we shall fulfill most of the requirements. So we shall be just trustworthy data processor for most of the organizations in the EU. How we achieve that? We are the most important. We are using really high-end data centers. It's on our webpage. We use OVH in multiple countries around the world, and especially in Europe. So if you are an EU organization, we can guarantee that, and we have the processes in place, that your EasyRedmine will be running inside of the EU. So the issue about data leaving your organization or leaving EU is covered. The only way the EU can be left is that that you allow access to the software, and somebody is exporting that outside of the Europe. We have regular backups. There is browser to server encryption, HTTPS, SSH2 for backups, and these things are meeting just nowadays standards. So from the investigation we made, we understand that this can be actually covered. What is important is that some organizations decided to increase the security and keep limiting access to some key applications. So typically, if you have cloud, but you would like to make sure that there are some IP restrictions, for example, that people only from your internal network can access the page, right? So they have to be in the office or on the VPN, for example. That can be implemented. That's the services which we are able to provide in private clouds, because on the public cloud it's basically impossible. So private cloud can bring even additional security, like IP filtering, deploying some firewall configurations, and so on and so forth. It's pretty much described on the web page in the private cloud section, and also it gives you your dedicated server, so it's based on the performance. So if you are looking for such a instruments, then we have a solution for you in terms of private cloud. Um, Legally, as we are the data processor in this case, we are preparing updates of terms and conditions. If you need, that shall cover, right? If you are using our system and we update the terms and conditions, the terms and conditions are basically in place, as it is focused on us data processors, that makes you covered. But if your legal or security department would need to sign some written agreements with data processors, as us, we will have our form or our template of such an agreement available probably next week. At this point, I need to say we are not able really to assess on customer by customer basis your data processing agreement contracts. We have thousands clients in cloud, and we are really not capable, right? That it's not that we wouldn't like to, but we are really not capable to review long agreements, for thousands of customers. But our data processing agreement will be very fine and balanced, so you can rely on that one. Some typical FAQs. Is Redmine GDPR compliant? Well, there is no certification for applications, right? So it is you who have to say if it is or not according to your processes, right? It's just a piece of software, and especially if you have it on your own server, you may benefit with the features I just introduced to you. But actually, there is no way how we can say, okay, this is GDPR compliant. We can say it, but it has no legal value. Basically, you need to have your processes and assess that this software can work, that it is fulfilling your minimal technical requirements, which is also something which is said by GDPR. Is easy software GDPR compliant as organization? Yes, basically we are. Still, there are some improvements. We have running, huge project on that, and some things are subject to be finished. Everything will be finished before the effective date. So yes, easy software is GDPR compliant. If your organization needs to talk with our data protection officer, it's me. You see the email right here. Maybe Hedvika will put it as a follow-up on this session. And there is this third aspect. What do we collect about personal data, about what we have in the database? We have the GDPR section on the web already, which basically all this text I'm showing you is already on the web and public, so you can come to that and check it. And in terms of what we collect, we don't collect much. Here is actually what we collect for personal data, because it's simple. We are B2B organizations. We are interested in understanding and profiling organizations, our clients. We collect personal data only for the purpose of serving you and concluding business with you. Now, let's have a look about, it's a little bit step back to the features, and let's talk about maybe how you can get compliant with GDPR, you as a data processor, in step by step using Easy Redmine. First, you need to understand what personal data do you collect in Easy Redmine. You need to have your own regulation, what the personal data are and in what systems you collect them. It's usually more than one, right? And now, understanding what personal data you have in the system and understanding who shall see them and who shall not. So, meeting this limited visibility requirement, you may identify custom fields. You may do one thing. This is important, that all personal data has to be in some custom fields, not in native fields of Easy Redmine, right? If you put name, email, and telephone number as a name of the task, right? That's problem, because this is structured. The task is structured data, and this information shall not be there, right? The task will be connected to a contact where these data are. if you need to do so, or at least put it into custom fields, and custom fields can be limited in its visibility. We recommend to run it in contacts. So maybe instead of having invisible custom fields everywhere, have contacts and limiting contacts visibility. There you will have these features as anonymization, and erasure and export. And the second thing is that basically everything on contacts is technically a custom field, right? So there you can very detailed work with who shall see what he or she needs to see to perform her or his work. So identify what custom fields inside of the contacts needs to be limited. What needs to be limited in terms of that. So you decide whether you do it on contact type or custom field level and implement that. Then you may maybe work on the increasing the security. Another thing which you need to do, and actually project management software is ideal for that, you need to formalize your process for right to be forgotten. How we have it implemented, we have a project template where I can immediately start the project, and there are tasks in this template for every owner of the database, where we eventually store this data. So this is fired. It's the tasks are given. So every database owner needs to confirm that the data was deleted. If everybody fulfilled that, I can see that as the project owner, and I can verify to customer that yes, everything was deleted, and you have nicely formatted how long it takes, when it starts, who participated, that from what systems it was deleted, and so on and so forth. So actually the project gives you also good track or good record about what you've done. Another thing then what you need to do is based on your internal regulation of according to GDPR and data processing, you may configure the storing the logs in Easy Redmine or outside of the Easy Redmine process way, and technically of course. And basically that shall be it. I mean, it's 120 pages. There is a number of things, but after analysis and study, we found out that this shall pretty much cover most of the needs and fulfill the needs of most of the customers. So I don't know if there were any questions, Hedviga. So please maybe I will stop sharing, and how can I stop sharing here? And we can start the discussion.
Thank you very much, Slavik. So yes, we had here some questions, but I answered them already. There was one from Sarah. She was asking like if there is already some visibility linked to user types or users or groups of users for contacts custom fields, but we answered this question actually. I can see that Martin raised his hand. I don't know, Martin, if you want to ask us something, you can use the Q&A section. Or anyone, if you would like to, if you have some questions, just use the Q&A section. I will just stop recording this, and we'll do the rest of the record.